Hello and welcome to the Experience Podcast. I am a limitless spiritual being having a human experience. My alter ego calls himself Neil Miller. Today I'm here with my brother, Dennis. And so usually at the beginning or throughout the videos, we bring up the introduction of our core values, and we are going to discontinue doing that because of the reason that when we state our core values, it can create a perception for the viewer that this is the way that our core values are, and that's the only way that they are. And so what we want to do is through our actions show you what our core values are. So we're going to discontinue saying our core values, and you can base your own perceptions of our core values. So that being said, the perception of the core values, we'll be talking a lot about perception today. So how do you see perception, Dennis?
Perception to me is basically my outlook on life. And it's like I have a different perception on you because we're all having a different experience. And I'm sure that everybody that's watching this video has a different perception than everybody else that's watching the video. And I think that's what makes it so interesting and life so amazing, is because here we are, we're all experiencing life, but we all have a different perception of it. And I think that's beautiful.
There's a big diversity with that statement that you just said. So I want to give the definition of perspective. And this is a definition, it's coming from Merriam-Webster Dictionary. So perspective is a way of regarding, understanding, or interpreting something like a mental impression. That's as a noun, and that's the first definition. We're going to go to the second definition as a intuitive understanding and insight. So now as psychologically, physiologically, and zoology, the definition is the neurophysiological processes, including memory, by which an organism becomes aware of and interprets external stimuli. That's the definition of perception. So perception is when we change our perception of what we're looking at, we can change it to the most beautiful thing or the most hateful thing based on how we perceive the thing that we're looking at. So it's very, your perception of the world around you has a profound impact on how you view the world. Yeah, so how have you seen perception? How have you seen the importance of perception? And how do you see the importance of perception?
I think that perception is everything. I think it can lead, or it can be the difference between us humans having an amazing life or having one that is filled with struggle, strife, anxiety, worry, fear. Something that I just recently noticed is when I change my perspective, And going back to perspective is, I believe, the information that we receive and also the environment that we're in.
That would be your senses picking it up. I wanna bring something up that I have a little article that I've written down. So when you focus on internal validation from yourself and less on external validation, by moving your focus via your conscious attention, from the outside of you, when you now discontinue looking outside of yourself and you begin to look inside of yourself, which will or can change your perception about the external events that are happening around you currently. And this can bring a sense of an emotion or a state of being of your choosing, because now you're getting your internal validation from inside, and you're bringing forth an emotion, which is energy in motion. And now you're creating an emotion or a state of being from inside of you internally, to
Validate that perception.
to create a perception of what you're looking at. But the creation is within. It has nothing to do with the animate objects outside of your being. It's all coming from within you. Yeah. Can you add something to that?
Yeah, because or shouldn't say yeah, because what I've noticed for myself is when we change the environment, when we change the information that we're receiving on every second of every day. So also when we go to work or whatever we do during the day, whatever it is that we do, whether we go to the park, whether we go to the gym, whether we go to the zoo, wherever we are, all those things will change our perspective and our outlook on the physical. But that really comes from within.
It does. So it does come from within, but it's interesting that you point out the physical places that we go, and as far as even what we touch and what our eyes pick up. Those are all external things that have a direct correlation or an effect on the internal perception that you bring to the forefront of your mind. It's like, for example, observing, we'll go to military. So take a soldier, for example, on the battlefield for, say, 3 years. Internally, his perception of the world is beginning to change, and he's perceiving the world based on what his eyes have observed being in the front lines, being on the battlefield. And his perception of the world from internally inside is what he's observed has an effect on the perception of how he views the world. So the external, it is important that we be aware of what we're observing, what our senses are picking up, what we're touching, because those do and can correlate with your internal perception. Even when it does come from inside, the information received is a huge part in that.
talking about information being received, I'm going to take it a little bit further. So words have the power of life and death. So when we observe a word, for example, if a person reads the news every day, their perspective on the world will be based on the words that they are reading. So if that person decides not to read the news anymore and chooses instead to go outside and hear the birds chirp and looks around and sees the green trees and nature and starts to feel gratitude, the outcome of that validation of their perception will be totally two different outcomes.
And I'm going to continue on that train of thought when you were talking about the words that we're reading as far as in the newspaper. So when we're reading those words, now that's information received, and your brain is like a computer. It can put out what it's received, and that's yes. So there's information received, and then there's output. And there's also generated output via the imagination, but we're not going there today. So we're literally talking about information received and information output. So now when you're reading the newspaper, the only words, say only, generalized. So we're talking about a person who reads the newspaper an hour every morning, at the beginning of a day. And so you have these words in your mind, and what you see around you, you're bringing out these words to explain it. So the only words that you have to explain what you see is the words from the newspaper that you've picked up. So a solution is to get new information, get different information received, to put new, they necessarily don't have to be bigger words, but to put more vocabulary in your mind. Now you can actually, with more vocabulary, you can articulate more on the situation. You have a better opportunity to explain what it is that you're perceiving. And now when you have your perception, now you have the words that you can use to explain your perception via new vocabulary. So we're talking a lot about inside validation and outside validation. Is there a reason to have external validation?
Is there a reason to? I don't think there's a reason to, but I think that we receive external validation regardless if we choose to or not, based on our inner perception. Because we see
Elaborate.
So if, for example, if I get up in the morning and I read the newspaper every day, because we were talking about the news, and so I'm just going to go with that as an example. So if I get up every morning and I look at the newspaper every day, and I have those thoughts in my head as I start going through my day, right? I will start seeing patterns and events around me that will validate my perception based on the information that I was reading that morning.
It depends. So you'd be validating your beliefs. If you have strong set beliefs, you will see your beliefs validated throughout your day. But as far as your perception is always changing. So I feel like the information received does have a direct correlation and effect with your perception, but I wouldn't say that it would validate your perception, because it goes with it helps create it. You see where I'm coming from?
Can you give an example?
So let's say that we have a belief that that 45 is old age, and throughout your life, the people you meet, the situations you're put in, the things that you do to your body, the fluids that you intake, the food intake that you have, it's all going to work together to validate this belief that 45 is an old age. Therefore, by the time you get to 45, you're going to have self-validated your internal belief of that 45 is an old age. Whereas in my perception, that is so young. That is very young in my perception. The belief, the deep set beliefs that you have get validated in your life. And everybody has different beliefs. So that's very interesting. And as far as so now when you have, so perception and how the information received, correct?
Yes.
So information, like what you observe, that is, it's working together with your other senses to create your perception. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
So it's not validating anything. It's helping to create the perception.
Your senses are.
Information received.
Yes.
So when you go out, you're not validating your perception. You're actually, it's in part helping create. Did I explain that in a way that it made it understandable to you?
Yes, I believe so. Yeah.
So, information is power. When we don't have information, we're scared. We don't understand things. But when we understand things, that's very powerful and liberating. And so, information it's so key.
Can I elaborate on that information?
Sure.
So the information that we receive is very, very, very important. Something I just learned this week through a friend of mine is that anytime that we hear somebody or somebody talks to us that we cannot stand their voice, or we don't like how this person, how we feel around them, right? The reason that happens is words are very, very, very powerful. The Bible says that words have the power, or the tongue has the power of life and death. That's how powerful words are. And it doesn't necessarily mean just when we speak them, it's as much as when we think about them. So when somebody's talking to us and we don't feel good when they're talking to us or being around them or whatever, what may be happening is, if, let's just, for example, a little child reaches into the candy jar and their parents yell at them to get their hand out of the candy jar, and the child freezes and immediately starts crying. Well, the reason that is because words are actually frequency and vibration. So what happens is, and this is an experiment that was done on a movie called What the Bleep Do We Know? Again, that movie is called What the Bleep Do We Know? You can rent it, you can buy it, whatever. And they did this study where they put words on bottles or jars of water. So they would write on the jars of water, they would write down joy, peace, love, and it was interesting because on those jars of water, the water, if you put it underneath the microscope, it actually turned into sacred geometric patterns that would look like snowflakes. It was very, very beautiful. But when they put down love, or when they put down hate, even on one jar they put down Hitler. They wrote Hitler on the jar of water, and it turned into this yellow kind of gooey, wow. And it looked very nasty, right? So going back to the information that we receive, it's very, very important where we get our information from. I just wanted to point that out as far as how information affects us, if it makes us feel good or if it doesn't. I think we should be constantly aware of how the information that we're receiving is making us feel.
100%. And on the information, like it's so huge. I mean, it's the vibration and the frequency is a lot to do with it. It's more so to do with it than the word that is spoken itself. Could you keep going with that?
I do want to mention one, or at least one more thing on that, because going back to the little child reaching into that cookie or into that candy jar. So when this child's father yelled at this child, what happens is our bodies are 90% water, right? So our bodies, literally, the skin cells, if there is love or peace or joy, our pores of our skin open up and they turn into beautiful sacred geometric patterns. Whereas when that little child was reaching in there and its father yelled that she can't do that anymore, now her skin cells tightened up, she tensed up, she became afraid, possibly disappointment or anger or frustration that she couldn't get that candy, and it immediately shuts us down. It closes us down.
So so that's on an individual level. How does that pertain to the universal side of things? Going as far as weather, going as far as vibration in the nature around us.
The environment?
Correct.
It's everything.
So can you give an example?
I mean, right now, my brother and I are out here in this, I mean, you can see behind it, it's absolutely beautiful out here this morning.
It's gorgeous.
I mean, you can hear the birds sing. You got a slight, you can hear the wind going through the trees. You can't see the wind, but I can feel it and I can hear it. It makes me happy. I can hear the birds chirp, and just using that as an example, I think it's pretty amazing.
It creates a frequency and a vibration through the birds, the winds, the trees together.
It's like the song of nature that's singing that.
So I want to go specifically to weather. Can you give an example on weather?
As far as
the sacred geometry, how does the tone affect the weather? How does vibration affect weather? How does frequency affect weather?
So this is something that I just learned this week as well, and I'm gonna have to do some more. I want to learn more about it because it's very fascinating. But scientists are now saying that when it snows, right? When it snows, there's thunder above the clouds, and that thunder shakes the rain, and it creates sacred geometric patterns, and that's what we see on the ground as snowflakes. So it's very, very fascinating.
That is
But I feel like I know this much.
the tip of the iceberg.
Yes.
Sir. Interesting. That's very fascinating,
It is.
and I'm glad you brought that up. It's like, so on the information. So we're gonna get into conspiracy theorists, and on information. Information is power. So I want to give the definition of conspiracy, and then also the definition of theory. So let's see here. So the definition that I have for conspiracy, it's actually like more so synonyms, and it's off of dictionary.com. So it's showing like, so synonyms to conspiracy would be conspiracy, plot, intrigue, cabal, all refer to superstitious or covert schemes to accomplish some end, most often an evil one. A conspiracy usually involves a group entering into a secret agreement to achieve some illicit or harmful objective. A plot is a carefully planned secret scheme, usually by a small number of persons, to secure sinister ends. A plot to seize control of the company was an example. And intrigue usually involves duplicity and deceit aimed at achieving either personal advantage or criminal or treasonous objectives. The petty intrigues of civil servants was an example. Cabal refers either to a plan by a small group of highly placed persons to overthrow or control a government, or to a group of persons themselves. A cabal of powerful lawmakers was given as an example. That's the definition of conspiracy. And conspiracy, the origin of the word conspiracy comes from Latin, and it was conspire. That was conspiree, actually. It's sort of it's Latin, so my pronunciations may be off. So, and then from there it went to Old French, conspiration, and then to Anglo-Norman French, conspiracy, with CIE at the end, and then to English, conspire. So that's the definition of conspiracy. And now we'll go directly into theory. This definition is from Oxford Language, and the conspiracy definition was from dictionary.com. So the definition of theory is a supposition or a system of ideas intended to explain something, especially one based on general principles independent of the thing to be explained. That was as a noun. Or a set of principles. Here's two more definitions: on which the practice of an activity is based. And the third one is an idea used to account for a situation or justify a course of action. That's theory. So conspiracy theorists, conspiracy theory, the word itself, there's conspiracy theories about the word conspiracy theory. So let's get into it. The one conspiracy theory is that the CIA literally invented the word to stop truth speakers from speaking out against things that they know, that they feel like you shouldn't know. So the first conspiracy says that they literally invented the word, and the second one states that the CIA, the word was already in existence, but it was never put together. Like conspiracy and theory were always separate. They were never put together. and then the CIA put them together to make the term conspiracy theory, and that is the second conspiracy of the word conspiracy theory. So I'm gonna get more into this. So we'll pull this up. So
You know how I know I'm alive, Neil? I got mosquitoes biting me.
a little bit of pain, it can definitely tell you that. And pleasure does the same. So the second version of the conspiracy theory claims that the term existed before, but that the CIA intentionally created its negative connotations and so turned the label into a tool of political propaganda. That's the second conspiracy. And we're just going to keep right on going here. So this is off of Yahoo Sports, and a few years ago, this second version of this conspiracy received a big boost in popularity, and it was when an American political scientist by the name of Lance D. Haven Smith, he propagated it in a book published by renowned university press. So Lance D. Haven Smith really brought this to the forefront of a lot of the people's attention. So both conspiracies about the word conspiracy theory point to a document, an official CIA document called Concerning Criticism of the Warren Report, as their smoking gun. That's what they use to say that the CIA basically either came up with the term or brought it forth for negative political propaganda. So that CIA document is called Concerning Criticism of the Warren Report, and it was released in 1976 after the New York Times requested it under the Freedom of Information Act. This document expresses concern about the considerable number of people who doubted the official investigation into the Kennedys' murder. The Warren Commission, which found that Lee Harvey Oswald acted alone. It also aims to equip CIA contacts with arguments against those who challenge the findings and official version of the event. For example, it emphasized that nobody in their right mind would have chosen someone as unstable as Oswald, basically as a partner. So, and then continuing on in this article, it says that this one may find that this is pretty problematic, how they're pushing this term conspiracy theorist as far as to quiet people. So what it says, in that document, in the concerning criticism of the Warren Report, in that document, there is not a single sentence in the document that indicates that the CIA intended to weaponize, let alone introduce the term conspiracy theory to disqualify criticism. In fact, conspiracy theory in the singular is never used in the document. Conspiracy theories in the plural is only used once, matter-of-factly, in the third paragraph. And I'll read it aloud for you. And this is a paragraph that is directly coming from the Concerning Criticism of the Warren Report that was released in 1976. So here's the paragraph. It says, conspiracy theories have
Das may noch angesehen. I think it is.
Do the volume and see how it is.
You mean the speaker?
Correct.
Testing 1, 2.
Alrighty. So, the document. So this is a paragraph from the document from concerning criticism of the Warren report. And here's the article, or here's the paragraph. It says, conspiracy theories have frequently thrown suspicion on our organization. For example, by falsely alleging that Lee Harvey Oswald worked for us. After this point of the Kennedy assassination was when conspiracy theorists really, the word conspiracy theory really came into existence. People started using it a lot more, and that's when it really became popularized. So, yeah, I wanted to bring that up. It emerged, the actual word itself emerged in 1870, but it became more frequently used in 1950, which was right around the time of the Kennedy assassination. So the CIA literally invented this term to quiet people from speaking the truth. So it's, like we were saying, information is its power. So it's kind of, so I see individuals and I see this cabal, this small group of powerful individuals trying to manipulate, control the world to their interests. And when you have truth within you, it's like holding a ball underneath the water. You can hold it for so long, but it is the ball's destiny to rise to the surface. And that's exactly what we're seeing happening today. The truth can be suppressed for so long, but it's the truth's destiny to rise to the surface. And that's exactly what we're seeing happening. So with that being said, I hope this video presented some clarity to you, gave you some solutions, maybe excited you. Do you have something you want to add?
Yes, I do. In that regard, they tried to bury us, but they forgot that we were seeds. And that goes for every single one of you, too.
We're destined to grow. Stay well, stay blessed, stay connected to Mother Earth. Wonderful. Be blessed. One love.